Voters say they aren't hearing enough about the climate in this election amid the silence on the issue in the last BBC debate. I'm going to read into this more from Byline Times, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from Byline Times with the headline that voters say they aren't hearing enough about climate in this election amid the silence on the issue in the BBC debate. The final head-to-head debate between Starmer and Sunak didn't have a single question on climate or nature. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share us across social media so others are notified of this video. And this is 100% true. And if you guys wanted to watch the full debate in full, I covered it in a separate video, which you can check out in the general election playlist. And I have to say, some of the questions were a lot of regurgitating of some of the same things. There weren't enough variety of topics that were talked about whatsoever. There was no mention of climate. There was no mention of nature. There was no mention of the environment. There was no mention of police and crime either. That was something that was not mentioned either. The main topic of discussion was around immigration and migration, and this isn't an immigration election. This is a cost of living crisis election, and people want something done about this cost of living crisis. Now, climate is something that is not going away. It's something that we are going to continue to discuss and something that we need to transition into. At least in other previous debates, it has been brought up, I will say, in the majority of debates. But that debate in itself, the one from the BBC, was without a doubt incredibly poor by the host, poor by the BBC, because they allowed protests, screaming and shouting outside it. And people will, for those who are saying it's democratically right for people to protest, people want to hear what the politicians are saying about the future of what they're going to be doing about becoming the next leader of this country. So in that sense, this is one area where I don't think it was right for them to do so. Sorry, you may vehemently disagree, but I think, yeah, they should have been silent straight away. It's very important, these debates, for people to hear them. But going off topic, obviously, climate, I've covered numerous stories about climate on my climate playlist. It is real, it is happening, we are seeing it every day. We hear about it, not just here in the UK, we hear about it in the world, about how places are getting a lot colder, or some places are getting a lot warmer. We're hearing about not enough ice is being formed in the Arctic, for example, as well. That's becoming a major issue. Africa is becoming more hotter than it should be as well. And some of the disasters, weather storms that are out there are getting worse and worse. We have uncontrolled arsons and fires with such blazing heat and temperatures, making it impossible for people to put out as well. All these things are culminating, and it's not being discussed about enough. And climate change is also tied into immigration as well, for people who haven't been paying attention as well. Because if you are someone from one of these poorer nations and the temperatures are as 50 plus degrees, as much as 50 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees, they will want to move out of those temperatures because they're quite simply too hot. So they will migrate. They will migrate America, Europe, UK. So we really ought to be doing our part, and we should be talking about climate more. Now, it's not to say that Labour, the Lib Dems and Greens, SNP, those Plaid Cymru as well, that political parties in the UK are aware of it. The problem is that the argument will be from a lot of people is that they're not pushing it enough. They're not doing enough about it, and it really does put things into perspective and questions about how important people are taking this, especially when it's not even brought up once from an audience member from that BBC debate at all. And I do feel that was a very biased audience at times. So I didn't think it was a very fair debate whatsoever on that. But let's read what Byline Times had to say on this, you guys. So it says voters say they aren't hearing enough about climate in this election, according to a new poll carried out by Savanta for climate charity Possible. 4 in 10 voters said they aren't hearing enough about climate during this campaign, compared to just 16% who said they have heard too much on the topic. Similarly, a plurality of voters, 35%, report that they have heard less on climate in comparison to the 2019 general election campaign. More than twice the number who have said they've heard more, 15%. In 2019, Channel 4 hosted a dedicated climate change TV debate in the run-up to the election. The then leader, Jeremy Corbyn, appeared alongside 4 smaller parties, but Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage refused to take part. That has not been replicated this time, with no dedicated TV debate on climate. There was not a single question on climate change in the final BBC head-to-head on Wednesday night, June 26, with only mentioned being an attack from Rishi Sunak on Labour's decarbonisation plans. While it is very rough proxy, Labour's 2019 manifesto had 60 mentions of the world's climate to 25 this year. The Conservatives' 2019 manifesto mentioned climate 10 times, remaining stable this year at 11. In 2019, Friends of the Earth rated the Conservative manifesto at 5.5 out of the maximum 45 in 2019, 12.2% in relation to the key environmental policies. This time, the party ranks 5 points out of 40. Labour's ranked 33 out of 45 points in 2019, or 73% of marks, outranking even the Green Party. And this time around, Friends of the Earth scores Labour's manifesto 20.5 out of 40 on green policies, of 51.3% of top marks, falling behind the Lib Dems 31.5 out of 40 on, and Greens 39 out of 40. It comes as around 50 Stop Polluting Politics campaigners blockage Labour's HQ in South London on Thursday morning on the 27th of June, in protest against the party's financial ties to polluting companies such as fuel firm Drax and aeroplane manufacturer Airbus. A company by chance of Labour, come off it, you're putting people over profit. And carrying banners reading Labour's the party of the people polluters, the campaigners physically blocked both entrances to the HQ in South Walk. Campaigners claim that Labour's ties to major polluters are to blame for the decision for abandoning its flagship £28 billion green investment pledge. The Labour Party has received 41,600 from polluters since 2019, including 9,600 from the aviation firm Airbus and 12,000 from biomass wood-burning company Drax. And campaign group Possible said that polluting builds on the growing evidence base showing that the commitment to climate action is popular with the public, remaining a top 5 issue for the electorate. Other recent polling found that policies seeking to row back on climate action are unpopular almost in every demographic, including those who intend to vote Conservative and Reform. Yeah, a lot of people who are voting Reform don't realise that it's very much against the green agenda. A lot of people who are voting Reform are basing their vote in Reform simply on immigration more than anything. Because they feel that they've lost the trust of the Conservatives. But what they don't realise is actually the Reform is completely against any kind of climate change, any kind of net zero, and they want to introduce fracking. They want to introduce more oil and gas. They want to open up more coal mine industries. They want to take us back to those. They want to make things worse. Basically, they want to pollute the country. Basically, is what they want to do. And if you don't believe me, go read the contract. I've read the contract. I know what their so-called contract. I know what they've said. These findings further suggest that politicians are out of step with the public on the climate, with this election campaign seeing signs of the main parties either downplaying or watering down their climate commitments, or even attempting to use the issue to express, devise and polarise the public. Climate charity Possible is calling on the media and politicians to give climate proper prominence in the final weeks of the election campaign. Max Wakefield, a co-director of climate charity Possible, said, "It's absolutely beggars belief that we can have the final debate between 2 candidates for Prime Minister and not have a single question on climate in a full hour and a half. The public truly cares about climate and want our leaders to commit to real action, but we aren't seeing that reflected in this election campaign, with politicians watering down their ambitions and trying to polarise the public. As we go into the final week of the campaign, let's make sure that climate is given the prominence it deserves. We call on the media and the candidates standing for this election to have a proper conversation about climate and celebrate how good climate policy can make Britain a better place to live." Savanta polled 2,323 people over the weekend of June the 22nd and 23rd. The full polling table results, including the breakdown of various demographics, can be found here. I'll just have a quick gander for you while that opens up for you guys. Okay. Yeah, well, It's only 2,323 people. I'm just having a look there, just briefly. I will just say this, obviously, if the link for the article, if you want to have a read and have a look at that poll, do it intentionally yourself. You're more than welcome to do so. But let me just say this, okay? So people do care about the climate. People are concerned about what's happening on the global issue. But if you ask what most people's main issues is the economy, it is this cost of living crisis. Many people are simply just trying to survive, just trying to get by. There is a great deal of inequality that is taking place in the UK. That is something that is fundamentally one of the biggest issues that we have in the UK as a whole, is the inequality that we have. A lot of people who are working hard, trying to make ends meet, and are simply getting bugger all in return. The equality is one of the biggest issues. We have public services that are broken. We have an NHS that is not working. We have an education system that is not meeting the demands that parents expected of them. We have crime that is uncontrollable, and Metropolitan Police that has been reported to be misogynistic and racist. All these things are problematic. And while you have all that, you also have the issue of climate change, which is not going away, that is only getting worse every single day that is passing. These are all the challenges that a Labour government is going to have to approach. Now, do I think that Labour are going to roll back on climate? I don't think so. But in government, I hope I'm wrong. And many people will say, well, Regan, you can't trust Labour. And it's easy for people to say you can't trust Labour, and I get that. And I'm sceptical about Labour too. But right now, at the moment, we are a few days away, probably a couple of days away now, from being able to cast our vote and make our decision about this general election. And if the biggest concern of yours is climate, then perhaps maybe you should look at potentially voting for the Green Party, or in terms of them, or maybe even the Lib Dems, because the Lib Dems have talked a lot about the environment. Labour have spoken about the environment, but not on the level I would say that the Lib Dems and Greens here in England have. Obviously, in Scotland, I can't speak for them; they can speak for themselves on that. And in Wales, it'd be the same for them. I can't speak for them; they can speak for themselves on that. But what I will say is, obviously, is climate one of your biggest concerns? Best way to do it is by casting your vote away from Labour if you feel that they are not going to be committing to do enough to talk about it. But there are lots of issues in the UK right now, lots and lots of issues, and believe me, people do care. I do believe the majority of people in the country do care. It's just a case of a lot of people just right now, they just can't get on their own. They need to get on their own feet, and they need help doing that. But what do you guys think? What do you guys make about climate change was not discussed at the last BBC debate? What do you make about it not having an election discussion about it either? We've obviously, I have seen there have been programmes about the NHS because of the crisis that it is in, but we've heard, as far as I'm aware, we don't hear enough about climate in this election. Or maybe some of you guys listening have heard too much about climate. What do you guys honestly think? Let me know your thoughts and more in the comments section down below. If you found this video interesting, please hit the like button, we greatly appreciate it. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video. And subscribe, because it does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. Or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope to catch you all very, very soon.